So last we left off, we were successfully able to set up a web application using a React backend server and a front-end React app, and we were able to combine them together. Now, let's continue towards our goal of creating a full-fledged web application. So for this demo, we're going to try to make a very simple and basic online course website. So the idea is you would proceed to put in your credentials to log in. And once you log in, the dashboard should show you what courses you have access to. And of course, this is all dynamic in such a way that, of course, if you put in the wrong login credentials, you would not be able to log in. Each individual user would have a specific set of courses that they have assigned to them. So let's just go ahead and get started on that. So the next thing we need is a database. We're going to go ahead and navigate over to the Postgres website, and you can find this at postgresql.org. And once you're here, you're going to go ahead and click download and download the installer for your system. What this will do is it will install the Postgres database as well as the Postgres client that comes with it. During the installation process, it's going to ask you what are the default credentials you would like to assign to the default database that gets created. And I would suggest just name the default initial database to Postgres and have the default admin user have credentials of Postgres. This will just keep things simple for the sake of our demo. So once Postgres is installed here, we're going to go ahead and launch pgadmin. And this is what it should look like while it's starting up. So once this opens, pgadmin should look something like this. So we're going to go ahead and navigate to the Object Explorer here. We're going to click on servers. It should automatically connect us to the existing Postgres default database. And if it doesn't, it may prompt you for login information. So just provide the default credentials, as I mentioned earlier. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a very simple database schema for our web application here. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click here and click Create Table. Now we're going to go ahead and create 3 tables here. The first table is going to be called users. And this is going to be how we store user data. To keep this simple, we're just going to create 5 columns. So every table requires a column that represents the primary key. And we're going to set this to a serial data type, which indicates that this is going to be an auto-incrementing primary key. And we're going to set not null to be true and primary key to be equal to true. Next column is going to be first name. And we're going to set this to variable character. Next, we're going to add a column called last name. Similarly, of data type character varying or varchar. Next, we're going to add a username column, which is similarly going to be of character varying. And then lastly, we're going to add a password column. And for the sake of this demo, we're going to set this to character varying as well. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to add a name to our primary key, namely users_primary key. And then we're going to hit save. So once the users table is created, we're going to go ahead and create another table called courses. We're going to continue to add columns here. First and foremost, the primary key column. We're going to give it a type of serial, and we're going to set to not null and primary key. Next, we're going to add a name column for the names of our courses. And last, we're going to add a description column for the description for our courses, and we're going to set this to text. And lastly, we're going to add a primary key name, and we're going to hit save. All right, now we're going to go ahead and create one last table here called enrollments. And this will represent the many-to-many relationship between users and courses, such that a user can have multiple courses assigned. And similarly, a course can be assigned to multiple users. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and create more columns. ID column as usual, with a type of serial. And now we're going to add the 2 foreign keys. So the first one being user ID. And we're going to set this to integer. And we're going to set it to not null. And similarly, we're going to add a course ID. We're going to set it to integer. And we're going to set it to not null. And now to add our primary and foreign key constraints. So similarly, we're going to add the primary key constraint name. And next, we have to add our foreign key constraints. So the user ID and course ID fields in this table are going to depend on the ID fields of the course table and users table. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and add a couple of foreign key constraints here. Enrollments _users_foreign key. And we're going to set the user ID column to point to the users table and point it to the ID column. Next, we're going to do the same thing for courses. We're going to point course ID to the ID column in the courses table. And then we're going to go ahead and click save. So now we've successfully created the 3 table schemas for our database. And now we're going to go ahead and populate it with some dummy data. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and open the query tool by navigating over to tools, query tool. And I'm going to go ahead and copy paste a few queries here that I've prepared in advance. And what this will do is it will simply just insert a couple of dummy courses and users for us to use for our demo. So here I'm adding a user called John Doe with a username of John Doe 123 and a password of ABC123. and another user called Jane Doe with a username of Jane Doe 321 and a password of XYZ789. Now, just a quick disclaimer that these passwords are being saved as plain text, which normally would be a big no-no in the world of software. We should never save password values as plain text, and we should be using the appropriate hashing and salting techniques to ensure that we meet security best practices. But for the purposes of this demo, I think we're just going to go ahead and save the password as plain text for simplicity. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this query by highlighting it and then pressing the execute script button. And as you can see, the query successfully ran. Similarly, we're going to do the same thing with courses, in that we're going to insert a couple of new courses called Course 1 Description 1 and Course 2 Description 2. Fairly straightforward here. We're just going to highlight it and we're going to run execute script. And lastly, we're going to insert a couple of enrollments here. So what this means is we're going to have user 1 be assigned Course 1 and Course 2, and we're going to have user 2 get assigned only Course 1. And we're going to go ahead and run this query as well. All right, after fixing a quick typo here, we're just going to go ahead and run it, and we'll see that our query was successfully ran. And now just to verify that all the data is as expected, we're going to go ahead and check that our contents are in the database. So we can see our users table is in order, our courses table is in order, and our enrollments table is in order. All right, so now we've successfully set up our database for this demo.